It's Spiritforged launch weekend in the West, so let me find out exactly how many boosters I'd have to open to build one of the current top Spiritforged decks, using science. We'll also talk about which boosters to open, the rarity makeups of these meta decks, and a bit more. I'm Simon from Games Deconstructed, and let's get started. Now, to eliminate guesswork from what I consider to be the top decks and what I consider to be a fully built deck, I've gathered 17 sample lists, each for a different legend. Each of these lists has placed in the top 50 of a Chinese regional tournament in the past month or so. Not all of them are created equal, of course, but the results show that they are all reasonably competitive. On account of them, doing okay in large competitions. If a legend is not on that list, we will not be building a deck for that legend. Which isn't just my attempt to keep the scope of this project healthy, but also so we don't end up with the learnings from this being, hey, you can build Garen for pretty cheap. We're gonna call it a success if we can get 100% of the cards for at least one of these decks. Legend and battlefields included, no runes, no sideboard. And I mean 100% of the cards on the list, no substitutions, because what I'd consider a reasonable substitution is very subjective, and I would like for this project to be as close to objective as possible. Here are the deck lists, but before we delve deeper into them, a quick reminder of the contents of Riftbound packs. If you already know this is gonna be super quick. You'll find 14 cards in each booster, 13 of which are real cards, while one is a rune or a token. Out of the other 13, 7 will be commons, 3 will be uncommons, and 2 will be rare or better. Your rares have a chance to upgrade to an epic at a rate of about 1 in every 4 boosters. There's 2 rares per booster, each of them has a 12.5% chance of upgrading to an epic. The last card slot is a guaranteed foil card that can be of any of the 4 rarities. Having that out of the way, let's get back to our decks. Here are the rarity distributions for our 17 lists. The majority of cards in all of these decks are commons and uncommons, thankfully. From both the pack odds themselves and a similar analysis I did for Origins a couple of months ago, I know that the main gatekeeper here will be the number of epics, with rares being kind of a smaller problem. And on the epic front, we see a good deal of variance between the decks in our sample. We have Ahri running just 1, the Chosen Champion. We have a good number of legends using between 2 and 4, and the top end here being Ezreal with 9 and Rek'Sai with a whopping 11. Those seals do kind of boost that number. This is the median rarity split of the decks on our list. Compared to my analysis of Origins decks, we've gotten a bit more rare heavy, at the expense of commons. +2 for the former, -2 for the latter on average, or on median I guess. Another factor that's going to make my job a bit harder this time is making the decision of which boosters to actually buy. Origins cards you can only get from Origins boosters, whereas Spiritforged cards only appear in the Spiritforged ones, and all of the decks in our sample play a mixture of the two. So let's see what the makeup of that mixture actually is. Overall, 55% of cards in these decks are Origins OGs. The stout, reliable commons and uncommons are the main driver of that, with 65% of commons and 54% of uncommons coming from the base set. For rares and epics, it's kind of the opposite trend. 55% of rares and 58% of epics are brand new SFG stuff. Which makes a good deal of sense, I feel. Signatures for new legends are going to see play as 3-offs in most of their respective decks, and they are all epics. Hell, even the new legends and chosen champions are all rares and epics, so the fact that those legends appear on the list in the first place requires the inclusion of at least 1 or 2 additional Spiritforged rares per each of these decks. So if Riot keeps to their current rarity split and design methodology, we can expect rares and epics to cycle a bit more often, at least on the level of the entire meta. Obviously on the level of an individual deck, if it's an Origins strategy like Kai'Sa or Annie, they will just replace parts of that strategy with new, better Spiritforged cards, but still keep a lot of the OGN stuff in there. Whereas if it's something reliant on newly added mechanics like Jax or Ornn who care about equipment, they will include more Spiritforged cards because obviously that's where equipment lives. Now I could of course open copious amounts of sealed Riftbound product and see which decks I'm able to build, but while fun, that wouldn't be very informative. Because of course, my luck opening booster packs wouldn't really translate to whether you would be able to build the same decks if you opened the same number of packs. However, if we took a look at, let's say, 1000 of these pack opening sessions, we might start to be onto something. And fortunately, we can. Through the magic of data science, specifically something called a Monte Carlo simulation, which is fancy talk for doing something a whole bunch of times and seeing what happens, we might be able to accomplish this. So I got to work, wrote a short Python script, let me rephrase that, I wrote a moderately sized Python script that creates a virtual Riftbound player. That player then opens packs using the odds I've shown you, adds them to their virtual collection, checks what they're missing for each of these decks, decides whether to buy SFG or OGN packs next, depending on what they're missing, and continues the process until they've got to 100% of a deck. They take detailed notes of how much they've spent, which products they bought, which deck they've built, and all that good stuff. I'm especially proud of the part responsible for deciding which set to buy packs from. It calculates expected values and scales those based off the likelihood of getting a useful card, but also taking into account those cards' rarities and weighting that by how close they are to completing a deck that those cards slot into. To illustrate, because that's kind of a lot, if they are missing an Origins common for Ari and a Spiritforged common for Azir, but they are way closer to completing Ari, they will value that Ari common up to 5 times more than the Azir one, depending on the difference in completion percentages of the two decks. Now, if this sounds at all impressive, I would appreciate a sub and a like. They help the channel grow and all that good stuff. Thank you very much, and let's take a look at the results. I've run the simulation 1000 times, and what you see right now is a histogram of how many booster packs it took our simulated players to complete at least one deck. The height of the bar indicates how many users opened exactly that many boosters before hitting 100%. The lowest number of boosters opened was 131, the highest 774, and the median here was 338. I could probably cut this number down by a good bit if I gave more weight to the budget-friendly decks in our sample, causing the robots to ignore, say, Ornn and Ezreal and chase Ahri, Victor and Azir more aggressively, but that would kind of defeat the point of this exercise. Overall, 52% of the boosters opened were Spiritforged, 48% Origins, which tracks with what we've discussed previously. There's more Origins cards present in our sample, and it's a larger pool of cards overall, but more of them are common and uncommon. So once the bot's collections build up, they start spamming Spiritforged like crazy to chase that last couple higher rarity cards. Finally, a metric that was quite useful to me in my Origins analysis was number of boosters until 90% completion. So instead of checking when the bots get to 100%, we check how many boosters it took them to have 40 out of the 44 cards needed. Because remember, also Legends and Battlefields. For this one, the median is 130 boosters, with the quickest bot getting there in 63 and the unluckiest in 204. Which means that the effectiveness of building a deck by just opening packs starts to drop sharply once you get closer and closer to that goal. Getting the last 4 cards needed here took most of the bots more time than getting the previous 40. For the unluckiest ones, over 3 times as long. And yeah, there's no duplicate protection in physical card games, so there is theoretically no upper limit on how many packs you would have to open to finally see that Ahri Inquisitive, or whatever it is you're looking for. So it makes a good deal of sense in my opinion to start towards building a deck by opening sealed product, getting the commons and uncommons, seeing if your rares and epics point you in a direction, and then get the last couple of cards you need by trading or via the secondary market. Now in terms of which decks were built, 27% of the decks that the robots got to 100% were Victor, 26 Ahri, 13 Jax, 11.4 Azir, with a couple of others in the single digits. This maps quite well onto the number of epics required for each of these. Ari runs just 1, and Victor runs 2 but less rares. Jax is 3 but single-digit rares as well, and Azir is 4 but only 4 rares. Victor and Azir are already on the radar as budget decks of sorts, and this confirms that hypothesis. Now, how does this impact your actual ability to build a deck in real life? First of all, the insane pack numbers that I just gave you are more of a ceiling than anything else. I don't know that many people who approach deck building for a new set by opening 300 plus packs, and to be perfectly honest with you, I envy their financial situation. In actuality, what most of us will do, and what I would recommend, is open a number of packs, whatever seems appropriate, and then gather the last couple of cards via trading or buying them off the secondary market. Another strategy unavailable to my bots, but available to you, is making substitutions. Let's say you don't have the 2 Draven's Audacious that are on our Irelia sample list, so you just run 1. It's not the end of the world, and it might even be more optimal, since a lot of these deck lists are not set in stone, they are samples, so perhaps running just 1 is actually better for the competitive viability of the deck. So TLDR, the current top decks play roughly a 55-45% split of Origins and Spiritforged cards, with more of the higher rarity being SFG. Epics, and to a lesser extent rares, remain the biggest roadblock in terms of building decks, and will likely be the last cards you'll be missing if you build your collection by opening packs. Decks that are low on epics will probably be the cheapest to build if you partake in the secondary market as well, so overall Victor, Azir and Jax are likely some of the cheapest builds overall, especially if you open some of the signatures for the latter two, or if their prices stabilize, cause Arise is having a bit of a stonks moment. Let me know what's going to be the first deck you build in the new expansion. I've been Simon from Games Deconstructed. Thanks a lot to the supporters over on patreon.com/gamesdeconstructed, especially Andrew Gross, ASAS, and Anna Schultz. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.